Hello, people. I'm going to drink my drink and let people get here. Good times. We have a lot to discuss today on this good morning, Sunday morning. Just want to give a sec till we get 100 people in here. Then we can start with my update about what's going on in North Korea. I'm sure some people have a lot of questions about politics and other things that we could talk about. I have to be out of here within, thank you, Bradley, at 9. I'm drinking my pre-workout, and then I'm going to go to the game, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, we have 100 people here. Before we get started, I do want to give a special plug to the sponsors of this live stream. Hold on. And that is Sheath Underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice20, you get 20% off. And not only is it super comfortable, so if you're in a hot climate, what Sheath has is its special pouch for the guys, which keeps everything safe, tucked in, and secure. And this is your chance to get into my pants. So it's linked in the description, sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice20. I wear them every day because they're so dang comfortable. And like I say, and you're welcome, if you're having a business meeting and your underwear is cupping your parts of your body, you can sit there feeling like a freak. And it's a lot of fun. So I heartily endorse this event or product, and I'm an avid user and a not so avid user, but a user nonetheless. Let me talk about what's going on with North Korea. So this is something people ask me a lot about. It's been in the news a bit recently. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, this is my kind of wheelhouse, for lack of a better term. If you haven't read Dear Reader, I hope you go to Amazon right now and grab a copy. There's no promo code. So sheathunderwear.com to get my underwear. Promo code Malice20. This is on Amazon. The Jews in Brooklyn are not having it. That's true. That's true. That is true. We have a Sandinista in the mayor's office. So, all right. So, I've been watching your clips on North Korea all day long. So here's money for the eeriness of it. I watch you pee, Chris. You better go to one of those piss doctors because something's severely wrong with you, physically and mentally. As this energy drink kicks in, this pre-workout, I'm going to get a lot more animated. I assure you. So for those of you who missed it, Kim Jong-un gave a talk in public not that long ago in the last week. This is the 75th anniversary of some event or other. They always have these. So North Korea is very big on their calendar. There's several events that they all celebrate. And this basically is a great mechanism to keep the country unified. It'll be the great leader's birthday, April 15th, Kim Jong-un's birthday, the founding of North Korea, and basically that'll be the day the kids at school get candy. So they kind of, Pavlovian, they associate it with the leaders and things like this. So they will often have these big parades, and a lot of their spare time is spent getting ready for these parades or these different events, because frankly, for them, the more time that is spent in getting prepared for these events, the less time people have to be idle, because idle hands in a totalitarian state are an issue for the regime, because then people get bored, they get lazy, they start thinking, they start talking to each other, they start wondering, wait a minute, what's going on here? No, keep them busy. And then and then you have a big party, and then bread and circuses, this whole thing. So in this talk, I've seen some reporting about it that I kind of disagree with. Have a monster on me. Well, thank you, Jim. I will absolutely have a monster for the monster. Am I right? Speaking of monsters, make sure you get sheath underwear to hide your monster. Okay, so I actually really like the product, so I'm glad to promote it. One of the things two things came out of this talk, three, excuse me. One is that he claimed or alluded to North Korea not having any coronavirus deaths. I can't wrap my head around what really had happened in North Korea or even in China, to be honest, because it's not a country with hardcore healthcare. As I discussed in the book, during the 90s, when their healthcare system fell apart, they even had a return of polio. So, since it's in many cases lots of physical proximity toward one another, it's a communal country. Everyone's always working together. They don't like people to ever have time on their own, whether you're by yourself. This would be very prime for a disease like COVID or the cold to spread very frequently. At the same time, so I don't know what the levels of death were. You would think it would spread very quickly, and if so, it's the kind of thing where we'd imagine the country being wiped out. It wasn't obviously wiped out. Thank you for the information, perspective, entertainment. Keep being awesome. You sent this to the wrong person by mistake. So we don't know. I am sure, with a high degree of certainty, not absolute certainty, that they were in communication with China, and China gave them some mechanisms to kind of do what they could. The numbers from China seem also extremely low per capita, especially given that China is the origin of this illness. Will there be more malice at the movies? Possibly. Yes. So I don't understand the sociology of COVID in North Korea in any sense. Like, I think it was a given that they had at least one case. They would have no problem, understandably, if there's that one person to put them out somewhere and shoot them. But because the disease is infectious with people who are not symptomatic, it seems like it would be very hard. On the other hand, North Korea is a country where it's the most closed borders on Earth. So it would be very easy to figure out who were the only people who had the potential to spread it. These are the least porous borders anywhere. So they would know by name, and probably counting them on two hands, who were the people who got in and out of North Korea in the last few weeks, and let's at least isolate them, and so on and so forth. So it's interesting what happened there, and I don't have any particular insight other than something's not adding up, whether in terms of the morbidity rates of COVID or I don't know. I don't know. Not that long ago, Kim Jong-un vanished from sight, and we were breathlessly being told that he's dead. There was a heart surgery and he died on the table and all this nonsense. And at the time, I called out how absurd this was for many reasons. One of which is the idea that a billionaire who has an entire hospital dedicated to maintaining his longevity, who has access to the best doctors on earth, is going to die, no matter how obese. He's morbidly obese, but he's mobile. That the fact that this guy is going to die from surgery at his age, it seemed an absurdity to me, and it turned out he was not at all dead. And then, as I constantly have to talk about, North Korea has a magic weapon which causes everyone to have amnesia, because 6 weeks later, he wasn't dead then, but he's dead now, and no one has seen him. There was a time not that long ago, if you guys want to Google it, if you just put in Kim Jong-un gout, where he vanished for like 6 weeks a couple of years ago, and everyone's like, oh, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. Not only that, your Facebook friend will be quick to tell you that if he dies, it's clearly going to be his sister who takes over, Kim Yo-jong. And if you ask them to name one other person in North Korea or name his sister, they will not be able to answer you. But they will tell you with assurance that it's 100% going to be Kim Yo-jong if anything happens to Kim Jong-un. Now, that is actually becoming increasingly likely for the very simple reason that she is becoming more of a public face in North Korea. So they are having to figure out some kind of insurance policy. But, you know, the claim also, here's the thing, North Korea has nukes. China does not want rogue nukes. South Korea doesn't want rogue nukes. Russia doesn't want rogue nukes. Japan and the US don't want rogue nukes. If Kim Jong-un dies, we will know very, very quickly, because China and the US are going to take steps, and South Korea and Russia and Japan, or some combination thereof, is going to take steps to make sure those nukes are secured immediately. It's going to happen. I'm going to sound like Trump. So quickly, you wouldn't believe it's going to happen. Is there an ancient or medieval parallel to the North Korean regime? No. Historically, monarchs were not in a position to maintain this kind of social control simply due to technology. Who were the god kings of days of yore? I don't think there were any that were. I mean, the whole point of Leviathan by Hobbes is to kind of validate this divine right of kings, but they were never this 24/7 oppressive. And you've inspired me a lot lately as both a funny man and an anarchist. How do I learn to use irony like you do? Gradually and then suddenly. So he gives this talk over the weekend. He was actually in a tannish suit or light gray. The sheath pouch is too big for me. No, sweetheart, you're too small for the pouch. He gave a talk in a Western suit. Now, one of the things which I've discussed, which, you know, people should appreciate, is, you know, they make fun of Kim Jong-un's haircut. His haircut is a throwback to his grandfather, the great leader Kim Il-sung, who was the founder of North Korea. So in a way, it would be like if President Trump was dressing like George Washington, or George Washington-inspired look. Now, that wouldn't work because of the wigs, but that's basically the point, that he's this kid and he's trying to emulate the respect that to this day, even among refugees from North Korea, the extreme veneration they have for the great leader Kim Il-sung, whose face is everywhere in North Korea. And it's really interesting that even people who are refugees, they will talk smack on Kim Jong-il, but Kim Il-sung, they still kind of have in high regard. He really is the kind of be-all, end-all for many in North Korea. I love Lex. Watching you put him in serious existential crisis was priceless. Lex is great. I love talking to robots. So we had a good time, you know, just as two good old Russian bros. Please define National Review type. Sure, someone who thinks victory is accomplished by impotent yelling. So he gave this talk. And, you know, in this talk, he was crying, and they said this is out of character, and he apologized for how he handled the COVID situation. Podcast with Hotep was excellent. Foucault was trash. Well, that's obvious. I knew this because of Camille Paglia. So let's break down why this is not exactly accurate, what we're being told. First of all, the claim that it's weird that he cried in public. North Korea is... the way people look at tears in North Korea, and I've seen this with my own 2 eyes when I was there, is they are very encouraged to cry at the drop of a hat. It's very, not only normal, it's almost like a sign of a strength there. In fact, one of the people who was on the tour with me was someone from South Korea, from American, you know, he was raised in America. And when people from North Korea met him, they would start crying and were like, oh my God, it's like my long lost son. And, you know, people in the US, they see when the leaders died, when the great leader Kim Il-sung died, when Kim Jong-il died, and you had these big parades and everyone was crying hysterically. And we're like, oh, it's all fake. To a point, it's fake. But they really are a country where there is a great deal of histrionics. It's not perceived as histrionics. It's something they do all the time. They talk about Kim Jong-il crying in literature. Obviously, they're not going to be putting that forward if this is represented as a symbol of weakness. Instead, it's kind of being viewed as a symbol of great emotional intensity. You know, this kind of almost romantic in the literary sense figure, like, oh my, you're just so overcome by how passionate his passions are. So that he cried is not really, I don't know if he's ever cried in public per se, but it's not at all would be perceived as, oh my God, what a loser. It would be like, oh, this is how much he cares about our people. Hold on, let me catch up with these super chats. To what extent is Alex Jones playing a character? I don't know. I don't have any inside information on this per se. I think the fact that he's so self-effacing at times, telling me that he's not really playing a character to that extent. I mean, there's a difference between kind of being a provocateur or playing things up for the camera and being insincere. So I think he's a heightened version of himself, as most of us are who do this kind of thing. It's very frightening to see President Xi's personality cult start to form and the adoption of more Maoist North Korean-style policies in China. Amen. I am one of the ones who's the most disturbed by this, and I've been on this beat since for 4 years now. So 8 years now, excuse me. So I could not agree with you more. National divorce. How would a split in the U.S. be different from India, Pakistan? Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I don't know how it would break down. It's just like any divorce. If you're going to get divorced from your wife, is it alimony? Is it a lump sum? It could go any way. There's no one way. Mountain falling on North Korea nuke problem. Nature or program? Nature or Trump nurture? I think it was them screwing things up. They're very unsteady with a lot of what they do there with their nuclear program. We got one more. Then let me get back to this. When I look at demographics, North Korea seems young. Also, with frequent food shortages, people with comorbidities died before COVID. Just guessing. Sure. But again, if it's this infectious and this, even if they're not dying, let's pretend, it's still very harsh. Let's suppose there's disease that just leaves you bedridden. If you're bedridden in a country where you're marginal, that's going to tip. Maybe they're not dying. Let's just like here. Where would you rather have COVID, in the U.S. or North Korea? Here, you're living with COVID. There, you're dying with COVID. So maybe it's not deadly in and of itself, but when you add in, I went to their hospital. Let me talk about that. So they have this juvenile hospital. What do they call it? I forget what it's called. It's a hospital for kids, maternity hospital, Pyongyang Maternity Hospital. You can look it up what the exact name is. And if you read one of their literature, it's like, oh, when you step into the lobby, I remember this exactly. When you step into the lobby, it's like entering a fairyland. And I assure you, I've not been to a fairyland, but I can't imagine it's like this. There's lots of tile. It's lovely. Chandelier. Very nice. It's not, oh my God, this hospital. Am I in Narnia? Is this Oz? It's not at all like that. And when they show you around, like a lot of these tools are like old. It's not kept, and this is their best hospital. So their medical care is not at all what it should be, which is very, very sad. One of the things that they brag about in their literature, which is true, which I had this confirmed for me, is when there's like a fire, people line up to donate their skin for skin grafts. It's just kind of and they do it gladly and for neighbors, not like family members. So it's really kind of, it's like good for you guys, I guess, that you have this access to other people's skin. If this is a symbol to you of a successful medical system, I don't know what to say. So one of the other things that in Kim Jong-un's talk is he also apologized. And this is supposed to be unprecedented. There is some precedent toward this internationally. And there's a whole chapter in Do You Reader about this, which is, and I play it up ironically because it was ironic, because for years, North Korea was kidnapping random Japanese citizens. For what purpose is still not entirely clear, bringing them back to North Korea. One theory is that they were there and forcing them to teach Japanese to North Korean citizens. It's not clear. These people had nothing in common. And when the prime minister of Japan met with Kim Jong-il for the first time, this was one of the big issues he brought up. And this was a big issue for many years in Japan. The argument for North Korean apologists and Second World apologists was, this is crazy. This is propaganda. Why would they be doing this? You believe North Korea can do anything. You guys are bullies. And Kim Jong, so he brings it up. He's like, look, Koizumi's the prime minister. I'm pronouncing it wrong, whatever. He goes, all these kidnappings. And Kim Jong-il goes, yeah, you know, because they were having a famine at the time, and they thought Japan would give them rice. And he goes, you know, it's true. It was someone who's been working for me. They were really overzealous. I'm sorry. And can we have some rice? And the prime minister's like, wait, what? He goes, yeah, we've been totally like kidnapping you guys, and I'm really sorry. And he's like, wait, what? Like, he couldn't believe it was this obvious, open, because for years up to that, whenever they tried to bring it up, the North Korean representatives would literally get up from the meetings and leave. Like, we're not even talking about this. Like, oh, how dare you? We're offended. Oh, how dare you disgrace North Korea? And then Kim Jong-il's like, oh, yeah, we've been totally doing this. And like, my bad. And he's like, wait, where are these people? He's like, yeah, some of them are dead. Like, this lady, she's in some house. And he's like, can we go through the list? And he's like, oh, yeah, there's some names that aren't even on this. It was like so, there was one book I read, I forget which one, I've read so many, which described North Korea as being in moral outer space. And this was a perfect example of that. You read this and you're just like, how is this real life? Needless to say, the Japanese public was not receptive to this apology. And rather than give them rice, they threw it in the ocean, is what the literature says. So again, but this was external. So internally, for the leader to apologize is largely unprecedented, if not entirely unprecedented. It's very much it humanizes him. Instead of him being this deity, which they're presented as, which is like, but for me, but for the leader, North Korea would fall apart. Now he's like, all right, mistakes were made. So I think he, understandably, is somewhat uncomfortable with the supernatural aspect to his personality that his father and grandfather, or his father concocted for his grandfather and for himself. He's trying to transition away from that. It's very hard to maintain something like this with access to the internet or to information from the outside world. It's when you have everyone just pencils and pens, you can kind of lock it down. Now with flash drives, it's really hard to convince people that he can do all these magical things. So that is transitioning in a very, very positive direction, because if this guy is not someone to venerate, then why are we putting up with all this crap? It's a slippery slope. And I don't think he's doing this entirely voluntarily. Let's catch up here. Would that Blade Runner line be applicable to North Korea at all? Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave. Yeah. Yes, of course. Of course it would be applicable. 100%, Liam. That's an easy one. No, you read a lot in the Soviet Union. Have you read Gulag Archipelago? I have not actually gotten around to reading it, which is, yes, you should condemn me and throw rocks at me. With all your remote interviews, let's get you and Sticks together. No, I think he's one of those I want in person. Because he's such an internet personality, I want us in the same room. And that's something that neither of us are going anywhere, and this is going to be one for the ages when we're in the same room together. So I'm going to wait for that one. I like your skin. It's tight, real tight. Thank you. I just shaved using, it's a brand no one would know, so not even gonna. Just throwing in a quick little destroy neo-Marxist authoritarianism, troll the left, vote Trump 2020. Okay. Speaking of the kidnapping, do you actually believe the story of the woman who was caught in the bomb scheme, or do you feel it's actually a hoax? So what he or she is talking about is the whole chapter based on this book called, I forgot, Tears of My Soul. There was a bombing. North Korea was responsible for it. They were caught. A man and a woman bomber. The man killed himself with a cyanide tooth. She was caught. She's now free in South Korea. The backstory in this book makes no sense. It sounds like an action movie. We do know she's the bomber. I don't believe the backstory, but it's very clear, and they admitted it, that they blew up this plane, because they did not want to have South Korea having the Olympics. But this was the beginning of the end of of kind of the Kim Il-sung era, and things got really bad for North Korea really quick after that. Your locals is the best. I'm a member of other locals groups. You have the best members. So nice not to deal with insufferable people. You're sending this to the wrong person. What's the best Legion of Superheroes story? Oh God, I love that comic. What's the best one? You know what's the best one? The when they take revenge on the death of Superboy is really good. I think that whole sequence. So this would be number 46 through 50 of the Paul Levitz era. I think I would put that way up there. There's not that many big runs that are. I gotta tell you, I cut my teeth, and I still will. The Adventure Comics number 300 through around 345, even though they're one shots, are just excellent. I adore them. Well, thank you, Frank. That's very kind of you. Okay, so that's kind of the 411 on what's going on with the DPRK right now. I'm glad people are paying attention to it again. I'm hopeful that if Kim Jong-un feels pressure or is choosing to humanize himself, this is a very potentially positive step in the right direction for the North Korean population, which is the only thing that matters when it comes to any discussion on North Korea, in my view. So I'm stoked. I want to talk about, I guess that's all I want to talk about there. If anyone has any questions, they can send it to me. How much longer do you think the Kim family can keep this up? Because Kim Jong-il kept the system going after the famine. Yeah. So you got to give him credit. If your country is falling apart, if people are starving, like 10% of your population, and you maintain your hold on power, you are doing something right in a very dark sense. But he really had the sociopathy, the evil, the inhumanity to do what it took to maintain his hold on power. Again, as I talk about this in Dear Reader, this is a man who turned away the UN and food for his own people because he said explicitly, if they give food to our people, the government will be superfluous or redundant, whatever the term he used, and they won't need us. So he knew exactly that if people are getting food, that's bad news for him, and he chose the good news for him and the starvation of 1 to 2 million. So now it's a lot easier in some senses because people are not desperate. You have the nukes. On the other hand, people are much more informed in North Korea about the outside world. They're much more skeptical. Kim Jong-un is not as much in many ways of a lunatic. I don't want to say lunatic because I hate that word. He's not that committed to the mythology as his father was. Very, very clear. There's several other signs. There was an article recently in the North Korean literature which clarified that the great leader Kim Il-sung could not teleport, or they call it fast-moving magic, whatever they call it. So this kind of demythologizing, it's amazing that they've been able to keep it up for this long. Let me see what we have here. Hunter Crackpipe, what do you plan to make a reality next through meme magic? I don't know. That's not how it works. It's more chaotic than that. There's lots of seeds. I don't know which one's going to sprout. I plant them all the time. Are the kidnappings related to the Japanese kidnappings of... Yeah, is she the... I always remember... These names are always tough for my Western ears, of course. So let me just make sure we're talking about the same person. If this is the actor and the director, actress and director that we're talking about. Yes, of course. So what he's asking about is there was an actress and a director who were formerly married. They got divorced. They were each independently kidnapped by North Korea. Kim Jong-il used them to make several movies, including a North Korean Godzilla movie called Pulgasari, or not Godzilla, whatever it's called. I forget the term for those giant monsters. Yeah, who cares? I'm too white. Anyway, so but those kidnappings were much more targeted. So we had a reason for why one and why the other. The others is just like some chick on the beach, and it's just like, oh come on, she ran away with her boyfriend. The cops would say, because I mean they would. It was so hard to connect the strings. It made no sense, and it's very, very unfortunate because these people would often be in North Korea, and then they didn't know what to do with them. They just put them away in some cabin in the countryside, and they didn't talk to anyone for like years. It's so disturbing. Go. Is TK Coleman someone who's on your radar? Oh, he's the best. His work, absolutely. His work creating alternatives to college like praxis and encouraging people to follow their calling is very cool. You guys have a great conversation. I've been on his podcast, even though I don't really do those kind of podcasts. Isaac Morehouse is one of the best people. I absolutely adore him. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I practice any kind of alternatives to college are just things, or most, that I completely adore. Did you see the clip of Wolf Blitzer going after Pelosi? Yes. And that was another big white pill. For those of you who haven't seen it, look it up. She gets livid at him and very sarcastic. If you are a politician, in my opinion, and a simple question for Wolf Blitzer causes you to lose your crap, especially high up as Nancy Pelosi, that to me is giving the signal that you don't feel secure in your position, that you don't feel comfortable with what's going on. So I thought it was very, very telling. It was very out of character for her. She usually knows how to stick to the message and maybe talk over the interviewer. So for her to be just very sarcastic means she's getting her ass handed to her on some level behind the scenes, in my opinion, if I had to guess. How difficult is it going through life being so damn handsome? I wouldn't know. Do you like Depeche Mode? Let's see how many we have here. I don't even know what this band is. We got this one. We got this one. And we got this one. That's the list. Watched Paul Gassari on a movie night. Weird movie, mostly interesting for knowing the backstory. How's the white pilling going? I think it's going absolutely superbly. The book is going really, really well. I'm writing right now about Thatcher, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. It's just also funny because I'm at that age where there's lots of things that I take for granted I think everyone knows. And then I talk to people who are like interested in politics, who are a little younger, and they don't know any of it. And I'm like, this is 101 type stuff when it comes to like Thatcher and Reagan. And I'm like, great. Like my work's a lot easier. Just like this shit that everyone knows from the 80s. It's like the Depeche Mode. Oh, I've never heard Just Can't Get Enough. It's like, what? So it's really, really fun adding all of the jokes and bringing them out as personalities because they're such over-the-top figures. People don't appreciate when you strip away the mythology how interesting they both are. Thatcher and Reagan. How likely, if Biden wins, do you think that the U.S. could be heading toward a totalitarian state? I don't see it at all. I don't think Biden has that in him. I don't think corporate America wants a totalitarian state. They're the ones who got him the nomination. I don't see that at all. I see it more the collapse of authority if the Supreme Court loses its legitimacy, which looks increasingly likely. And then I guess if things start falling apart, you're going to have to institute totalitarianism. But yeah, will you show us the frame picture behind you? No, because it'll reflect. But if you go on my Instagram, it's there. It's I got Raphael Kayanin, who was one of the Firestorm artists, to recreate the cover of Ego and Hubris. So that is that. This pre-workout is really kicking in nicely. It's really frustrating to see conservatives adopt progressive positions because they want revenge on Twitter and Facebook. Why is it frustrating? It's like being frustrating that the dog is barking. Like, I get, okay, that is frustrating. I just answered my, boy, isn't that funny? I'm trying to be sarcastic or whatever in a sense, and it blows back in my face. You're right. But at a certain point, you're like, okay, I know this dog is going to bark. It's on me that I'm stupid for expecting otherwise. Hey, Michael, I'm a big fan. Any advice for someone looking to break into reporting or working in a think tank on North Korea? I have no clue at all. I would reach out to the guys from nknews.org. They're the best site, and try to start writing for them. Do you think we will see disunion in our lifetime? Some form of it, yes. Yes. What part of the cathedral burns to the ground first? Ooh. It's probably going to be, I'd not say none of them is burning to the ground. Right? Like, we have separation of church and state in this country, but we have thriving religion, and we always have, right? So the cathedral is always going to exist. It's just not going to be the cathedral. So we'll always have the universities, the corporate press, and a federal government, but it might be much more ineffectual. So in terms of which is going to lose its legitimacy the most, in terms of the corporate press, the government, or the universities, I think the corporate press is the first one to go. And I think this is almost inevitable at this point, if only because of just economics. If you look at music, right? Music used to be 5 or 6 record labels, and now if Warner Brothers puts out a record, sure, it's going to be popular, but none of us would think, oh, this is a must listen to. So in the same way, like CBS News reporting something, okay, cool. It's not going to have the imprimatur, like really that stamp of approval, or like the New York Times, like it did 10 years ago. I never read DC Comics, but I love the DC animated universe. Did you ever watch Batman, Superman, the animated series? I did. I was a big fan of all those. I have all the Batman, the animated figures, series super action figures too. Are you aware of the Department of North Korean Studies at the University of Detroit Mercy? I was not even aware of the University of Detroit Mercy, so I was not aware of this. So that's very interesting. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Okay. Hold on a second. By the way, I also have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to do my next tasting. I've got a bunch of potato chips, a bunch of sodas. I will do that one weekend night because that's a lot of fun for people, I think. That's going to be exciting to do. What else did I want to talk about regarding to North Korea? I'm just also concerned if Biden becomes president, that there isn't going to be much of a focus on North Korea. So that is something that is, because it wasn't an issue during Obama. Obama didn't know what to do, and I don't really blame Obama, but it's kind of sad because President Trump very much brought the North Korean issue to prominence, but Biden doesn't seem to really care one way or another at all. What do you think about the modern equipment the North Korean soldiers had during the parade? Is China still supplying them militarily? Yeah. You know, their money always goes to the military. They're the 4th largest, last I checked. I mean that literally, military on Earth. This is something that is, and it's interesting because North Korea's army is not how we think of the army. Their army is used to make construction. They're construction workers. So they don't just have them sitting around. And they also don't have tools, so they're like building things by hand. So that's where the big chunk of the money goes. So again, but if you have nukes, whatever else you have is almost kind of secondary or irrelevant. What is your opinion of libertarian socialism? Also, do you listen to any metal? I don't. This is the most metal album I think I have. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. This is my extent of metal. My version of metal, this is what I listen to, is, that's really funny. I was just talking to her daughter today. There's a band from the 70s called X-Ray Specs. They're a British punk band. I was listening to them in college, and my roommate walked in, and he goes, how can you listen to this? It just sounds like people screaming. So I love that band. I think that's much harder in a sense than metal. But to rest of your question, libertarian socialism, okay. It really makes me wince. I'm not going to use the word cringe. I hate that word. It really makes me wince when like ANCAPs make fun of the term libertarian socialism or libertarian socialists, because The first libertarians were socialists. This is where the word comes from. At the time, socialism did not mean more government. It meant a more scientific approach to society than simply liberalism, okay? The first libertarians were the anarchists, people like Emma Goldman, and that whole school. That's where the term came from. Contemporary libertarians only know Rothbard and think, oh God, it's a contradiction. No. They came first. They have more of a right to the term. Now, you can say their version of libertarianism would lead to blah, 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 blah. The point is, it's not a contradiction. It's the original sense of the term. We should all know our history. Is woken and part of the cathedral, or like a cordyceps? I don't understand this. Let me look this up. What is woken? What do you mean by woken? I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Love everything you do. Challenge accepted. You often say the Rubber Rodeo film was the screenplay was the best thing you ever wrote. Now with crowdfunding, do you think it will ever come to fruition? It could. Oh, I should just make it a graphic novel, right? Holy shit, why didn't I think of that? I could do that contemporaneously because it's already written. I just need to crowdfund it and find an artist. You are a smart cookie. Holy shit. Yeah, that is such a great idea. Why didn't I? It's written. Crowdfund, rubber. Oh my God, this is so. Script. Oh my God, I just got to find the artist and pay for it. You're right. Brilliant. Are there any current states in the world you wouldn't consider inherently evil? Sure, the U.S. And have you inherently evil is a big word. If you have freedom of migration, if you have freedom of speech, freedom of property, lack of arbitrary detention in the main, I think I would say evil for a state, I really want to reserve, because people who say we're basically North Korea here really do a disservice to the victims of Hitler, Stalin, and people like Mao and people like that. So I think having the ability to flee is a big distinction between evil and non-evil states. Have you gone deep into any non-American anarchist movements? I have not at all. I have recently read Industrial Society and Its Future for the first time. Have you read it? I have not. Thoughts on Ted Kaczynski? I think I have a very midwit impression of Ted Kaczynski, meaning he's interesting and deserves to be cited more, but I haven't read up on him as much as I should. Although on my desktop right now is the Chris Donner manifesto. I forget his full name. The guy who shot all the cops. What might a national divorce look like? What issues would be the dividing lines for such a divorce? It's just like any other divorce. It could go infinite ways. It could be north-south. It could be the coasts. It could be 6 countries. It could be 2. We have no idea. What issue would be the dividing line? If you said the issue for the Civil War would be shooting Fort Sumter, you'd never guess that, right? We have no clue. It would just be like the straw that broke the camel's back, and someone's like, you know what? We're done. Okay. Wokeism. I know what cordyceps is, so is wokeism part of the cathedral? Wokeism is a technique that the cathedral uses to maintain its hold on power and will be discarded tomorrow if it's of no longer any use. You have a bunch of neat stuff. Where do you find it? I spent a lot of time crystallized books. I don't know what that means. I spent a lot of time on the internet. I know how to go through rabbit holes. It's fun for me. And since people are chipping in to buy it, it's a lot easier. Crystallized books. That's pretty funny. At my college, we were taught the slippery slope argument is a logical fallacy. Do you believe that it is? No. Things culturally have inertia. And it's a logical fallacy. It's a logical fallacy in the sense that it's a given that if you go from A, you're going to end up at Z. But it is not a fallacy to say we should be worried about Z if we're at A, because A necessarily precedes Z. And an obvious example of this is all crackheads tried weed, and you could broadly say smoking weed therefore leads to smoking crack. In a sense, it does, but this is a loose correlation, but it's not a zero correlation. If Trump wins again, will the left and the media realize they are to blame and change their way or somehow double down? They will always double down. If they were incapable of not doubling down, they wouldn't have been in this mess. They wouldn't be trying to play the race card again because it didn't work. It didn't, simply because it didn't work for them last time, even if it's true. So they have to double down, because just like Kim Jong-un, if they say, oh, we were wrong, then a lot of that air of certainty they give their congregants is vanished. And that is a big selling point. We're giving you absolute certainty that this is the truth. Michael, that's me. I love when you talk about pop culture, especially the punk scene. I would love to hear a live stream of the censorship hearings Tipper Gore started. I don't know that much about it. Or your thoughts on Jello Biafra. So there's an event at Skankfest, which I wasn't invited to, where the people do karaoke. Not a karaoke. You're singing it with a live band, different members of the event. And I was thinking of doing California Uberalis. But I'm not that familiar with him, but my understanding, Jello Biafra, but my understanding is that he's a crazy person. And like a legit crazy person. So, but I'm not that big of a Dead Kennedys fan. Since you take a lot of interest in Korea, are you familiar with the Korean People's Association in Manchuria or any of its history? I'm not that familiar with it, but Manchuria obviously plays an inordinate amount of impact in North Korean history and culture, because that's where the great leader Kim Il-sung went to, and there's a huge Korean population in Manchuria. So this is something they talk about a great deal. In the past, you mentioned Eritrea as a country that is similar or heading in the direction of North Korea. Any other info you can share? Sure. It came across my desk because there was 1 year when North Korea was no longer the last place in terms of press freedom. Eritrea took over it in terms of, it was I forgot what it's some organization that keeps track of journalist freedom across the world. Journalists Without Borders, maybe it's called. I don't remember. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've never heard of Eritrea. And it's a recent country. It broke off from Ethiopia. And what apparently they did, the leader, they took all the journalists, put them in metal boxes, and left them to die in the desert. So it's the only country, in my understanding, where there's no foreign journalists. I think since then, North Korea has recaptured their first place dubious prize. What else is interesting about Eritrea, in the same way that North Korea has echoes of Stalinism and Soviet influence, Eritrea, being part of Ethiopia, was part of Mussolini's conquest, and the capital, Asmara, very much looks like an Italian fascist city. And there's a car dealership that is kind of, I forget what company it is, but it's still this Art Deco masterpiece from the 20s. So that is someplace I would definitely going to go to on my bucket list. Have you read any comics illustrated by Mobius? I have not. I'm not familiar with him. I know who he is, but I've never read anything by him. I don't like that style particularly. Do you think there is anything wrong with hiding your views and being a social chameleon according to audience environment? No, it's not in a corporate setting. No. Smile and nod. You're dealing with people who will regard you as an infection if they perceive you as not being one of them. So choose your battles. You're not dealing with fellow human minds. So you be very, very careful. It's a lot easier for me because I don't have a boss. I don't have to answer anybody. I don't have a family who, if I'm out of work, I'm stigmatized. But if you're in an office, if you're in college, be careful because they're also very vindictive. Do you think media will dare to call the election for Biden early? I don't think it might be all over the place. It might be different outlets react differently. But I got to tell you, I think they are much more conservative in this regard than people realize. They're not quick to call unless the data's there. It's not the editorial people making these calls. Even on 2016, they were hedging their bets. They're like, okay, let's not call it until in 2000. Another good example, like let's wait, and they're very conservative, and it's to their credit in this regard. 1 second. I got 8 more minutes, then I got to bounce. Oh God, thank you so much, Jose, for that rubber rodeo idea. That is I got to find a good artist. I got to find a good artist. Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, that's going to be epic. Oh God, how do I even find that? And it's perfect because the screenplay is like 120 pages. So 1 page for 1 page. This is such a good idea. Oh my God, I was so excited. It's funny, like I'm writing a book. It's like, you got another book, it's already written. Someone just got to draw it. And then it'll be very easy to do a digital version of someone to colorize it. What if I get Raphael to do it? Oh man, I could do that. Are you a jazz fan? Oh, I am a jazz hater. Harvey Picard was a huge jazz fan, so that's the one reason I can't say jazz should be illegal. My favorite saxophonist, I'll say, be tongue-in-cheek, was the girl who played saxophone at X-Ray Specs. Her name was Laura Logic, and I just got in touch with her recently on Instagram, so I'm very, very excited about that. Oh my God, I got to find out his page rate. I'll be able to fundraise this in a couple of days. This is such a good idea. You changed my life. Thank you, Miss Nightshade. It's Mr. Nightshade to you, asshole. Don't misgender me. Thoughts on blue-pilled social justice warriors such as myself who watch and find value in your work. You're not a social justice warrior if you find value in me. You might be a hardcore leftist. You might have strong convictions, which I probably share more than you think. You're not SJW because you're not the W. Reach out to Comicsgate guy. Oh, Ethan Van Sciver. He's such a good artist. I can't afford him, I don't think. And it might be an ego thing because he's such a big name. I'd be scared to work with him. Would an anarchist society contain proper functions to hold bad actors such as Jeffrey Epstein accountable? I will remind you all that in our non-anarchist society, I'm not being sarcastic, there were a lot of people who were making it a point to make sure Jeffrey Epstein was never held accountable. A lot. And it's a lot harder without that centralization, in my opinion. Just like Cosby and as another one. Because you have that little cadre, but when things are more decentralized, imagine if instead of having Hollywood, there were like 5 Hollywood, right? And then this group, hey, if I leak that these guys are all frauds, it's going to be great for my business. Think how good that would be, right? So that is something that is just to consider. See your point about evil. I guess states that beneficial enough to the people to validate their existence. No, I'm an anarchist. There are no states that are beneficial enough to people to validate their existence, in my opinion. Libsoc makes more sense in terms of localism for me, but I find the proclaimed Libsocists on the internet disguised Stalinists. I agree with you. You're absolutely right. That's not even a question. But to regard the term as an absurdity is to deny its historical origins and validity. Hi, Michael. Big fan. What do you think of Thatcher arming the UVF and UDA and criminalizing IRA prisoners, which led to hunger strike in the 80s? I'm not that familiar with the Troubles, which I think is it's such a great name for such a disturbing period. The Troubles, like, oh, we're just blowing up, Harrods, but some cop just got dismembered. What do you call it? Oh, the Troubles. It's so weird. I was just writing about that yesterday or 2 days ago in the book. This is something I'm going to avoid. And also, she almost got killed. They blew up the hotel she was staying at in Brighton, I think it was. But this is something that's so complicated and I know so little about that I'm going to completely duck the issue. And I deserve any condemnation for this that I get. Likelihood of getting TK Coleman on a You're Welcome or a Hangout, pretty low. Because I've got a lot of good names coming up on You're Welcome in the next month, and I try to avoid libertarians as much as possible. A hangout, I'm closer with Isaac, so that would probably happen first, and he would be someone I would have an excuse to talk to. 1 second. I hope you guys are having a fun night. Okay. Meant to say Korean Anarchist Federation earlier. Anyways, you into any new school hardcore punk bands like Knock Loose? Never heard them. Kublai Khan? Never heard them. Code Orange? Nope. None. You got to keep it old school. Richard Hell, The Adverts, Pistols, of course, X-Ray Specs. That's kind of my big list. I have no idea if your script is Christian acceptable. It is, except for the endorsements of killing children for Satan. But your Babylon Bee crossovers are forest. Is that kid slang that I don't know about? If you got Ethan Nicole to do the art, I wouldn't want to work with someone I'm friends with. I would want to work with someone who I can, it's like, be more assertive with. Ethan's great. I adore him. Just absolute, what a mensch. I don't know if he'd find that offensive. I don't think he would. Maybe ironic. Okay, we got another minute. I'm going to try to get, I'm sure this isn't going to be hard to do. I'm going to try to get, Douglas Murray is coming up in 2 weeks on the show. I got him to laugh. That was fun. I want to try to get Scott Adams for the week after that, which I haven't reached out to him, but I'm sure he'd be receptive. He's been on the show before. So that is going to be really exciting for you guys. I want him to do the post-election wrap-up with me on You're Welcome. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope you are, to remind you all, I do hope you all are enjoying your sheath underwear, because I am in it right now and I'm going to head to the gym and it's going to keep me nice and not sweaty because of the special sheath pouch. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use code MALICE20, you get 20% off your order. Thoughts on Bronze Age pervert? I am a hardcore, and I can of worms, I'm a hardcore urbanite. I'm a Hamiltonian. I'm a person of cities. And also, and I say this as someone who's watched every single episode of Drag Race, who has Candy Darling's picture hanging in his kitchen. It's so gay, his feed. It's just naked dudes. I'm like, I don't want this. But he does a lot of, I think he's very tongue-in-cheek and does a lot of interesting stuff. And Moldbug, of course, is a huge fan of his, which is not surprising at all. But I think we obviously swim in parallel streams to some extent. What has been your favorite part of this interview? I would say the rubber rodeo thing. That was such a good idea. It's kind of blown my mind that this is something I have a book sitting right here to do. So I cannot wait to get on board with that. That's just absolute no-brainer. Okay, I am going to bounce. I'm going to go to the Geim. I hope you all are having a good time. I may do another stream. I'm going to do another stream shortly. And thanks for all the support and everything. And just join us at malice.locals.com. And I will talk to you guys soon. Take it easy.